Hi, I'm Amber with Solutions for Simplicity, and in this video, we're going to talk all about why SMART and even smarter goals are not enough. You have probably heard of SMART goals before. If not, don't worry, I'll give you the quick rundown. You may be less familiar with the concept of S.M.A.R.T.E.R goals, so we will get there as well. But even those two formulas by themselves are still completely insufficient if you are really serious about making your goals happen. In other words, you have honestly been not misled, but no one has ever given you the complete story, right? You need more information if you really are serious about slaying your goals. So that's why I'm here. That's what we're going to cover in this video. Give it a thumbs up. Make sure and subscribe if you're not subscribed already, and let's dive in. All right, so the SMART goals acronym stands for something that is specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound. Let's quickly talk about each one of those things, right? So the little recap is that your goal needs to be first specific. It needs to be concrete and narrow. It needs to be something that is refined enough that you could actually achieve it, right? And so some of these other elements, we'll get back into that. But in other words, you don't just want to have some big, broad, fuzzy goal like, I want to lose weight. That isn't going to really help you, right? You don't know what to do with that goal. You won't know when you have met it for a whole bunch of other reasons. Or you might say something like, I want to start a business, or I want to start a blog, right? Those are wonderful aspirations, and it might even be part of your personal mission, something that you really feel called to do. But unless you narrow it down and give yourself certain benchmarks and an actionable plan that is going to help you achieve that larger purpose or larger dream, right? Then it's always just going to be something that could be done or fulfilled later in time. So really important that your goal is concrete and narrow. The second letter, M, is for measurable. You need to have some way of knowing when you have reached your goal, right? Now, this could be a simple yes or no answer. And so in that sense, the goal of losing weight, if you lose half a pound, okay, you've lost weight. Technically, you have met your goal, right? But again, you need to have something more refined that tracks when you have crossed the threshold and when you have actually succeeded in meeting what it was you set out to do. So ideally, your goal will be something that can be measured not just in that black and white yes or no kind of frame, but more a variable spectrum where you can track your progress and you can see you are better off certain days, or maybe you backslid certain times. We're going to talk all about tracking your progress later in this video, but make sure your goal is measurable. The next thing is to make sure your goal is actionable. There needs to be some clear path that you are laying forth for yourself in order to get from A to Z, right? You don't just have these big changes overnight. You don't just reach your goal overnight. You need to really work backwards from where you want to go to all the little things you need to be doing in order to get there. And this isn't always easy, right? Or certainly we might miss some of the essential steps that we just don't know about, or we think we can gloss over. But take the time up front when you are planning out how you're going to approach your goal to really think about the specific component steps and the sub-goals that you will need to meet along the way. The R in SMART goals stands for realistic. Some would also say relevant. This means that your goal needs to be something that is feasible for you. It needs to be applicable to your starting point and to your season of life. Now, that doesn't mean that your circumstances won't change, or that that very same goal might not be more appropriate and possible down the road, but you've got to get clear with yourself. Is this something that you can actually get traction on at this stage in your life? And more importantly, does it matter to you? Is this something you really, really want? Is this something that is going to push your personal success needle forward? Or is it just something that would be nice to have, or you feel like you should go after, but you don't necessarily have a deep underlying sense of motivation to propel you forward? All subjective questions that you can only answer for yourself. Finally, the T in SMART goals stands for time bound, and you hopefully know how critical it is that every single goal you set has a set deadline by which you hope to meet it. Now, we all know that deadlines come and go. We don't always get there by the time that something is due. You can work and work and work, and sometimes there are still things outside of your control, but the point is that you want to set a deadline that is both realistic and yet pushes you, right? Challenges you. Really, it gets you with that fire underneath you so that you are motivated to work harder than you would without that deadline. And at a minimum, having that deadline, making sure your goal is time bound, is part of making sure that it is measurable. Because without a date by which you were supposed to accomplish this thing, you again might not know if you really succeeded. So that's SMART goals. And let me know in the comments if you're really familiar with these. But again, you have maybe not heard about the 2 additional letters that have since been tacked on to form the S.M.A.R.T.E.R goals formula. Those 2 letters are obviously E and R. The E stands for evaluated. Your goal needs to be assessed in some way. You need to have either a way of checking in with yourself and monitoring how you're doing or what's working and not, or ideally you need to have some other person, some outside source that is helping you to do this. But either way, you're going to need to kind of adapt along the way. Things are never going to work in this smooth, linear process where you just, are always on the up and up towards reaching your goal. No, there's that constant fluctuation, that up and down, where sometimes you make progress and then right back down, you have a dive, and it's those moments where things are not feeling like they're on that upward trajectory that you might be willing to give up. So if you are evaluating your progress, you can equip yourself with very helpful data to ideally see that even if you are kind of having those fluctuations, overall, you are still moving closer towards your goal. Lastly, the R stands for reviewed. It is really important that whether you reach your goal or not, you have a way of assessing what you could have done better and how you could have tweaked your goal. You can see there are a lot of similarities between the evaluation stage and the review stage. Evaluation is more something that you do during the goal slaying process, and reviewing your goals is maybe something more to do at the end. But either way, both of these components have proven to be very, very helpful beyond just the plain SMART goals. My big point is, of course, that even these 2 formulas, SMART and S.M.A.R.T.E.R goals, are still not enough. There are 5 additional things that you really want to know about and build in from the beginning in order to maximize your chances of success. The first thing that is missing is arguably the most important. That is clarity. You need to know why this goal is so important to you. Are you doing it because someone really thinks you should? Are you doing it for extrinsic or external motivation, where you want the actual tangible material or financial reward that comes from it? And that's okay, right? But the best and most successful goals have an intrinsic sense of motivation and purpose attached to them. There is some underlying reason why this goal matters, and it's going to make you a better person. It's going to bring you closer to where you want your life to be, and you are ultimately progressing to better align your life with the values you espouse. Is your goal doing that? Now, the reason having a why is so important is that, as you well know, your motivation is not going to stay constant throughout the goal chasing process. You are going to have times where you are ready to go, you're feeling really good, and you can do it, right? And then you are going to inevitably hit roadblocks or unexpected life events and challenges that feel like such a setback you want to give up. And in those moments, if you don't have that deep, ideally intrinsic reason why this goal is something you are going after, you are going to be more likely to abandon your plan. It is so, so important that you remind yourself on a regular basis why you started this goal, what you're really hoping to get out of it, and why you are better off continuing to proceed towards it. The next thing missing is necessity. It's awesome to have goals, but the best and most successful ones have some fire that is accompanying the need to achieve this goal. You basically want to find something that is going to make your life dependent on making this goal happen, or otherwise you're going to face negative consequences. You might have negative outcomes. You might be embarrassed or fear punishment. Those are very extreme examples, but some common ways to find a greater sense of necessity are situations where, like, your goal is to build extra income in to help support your family, and then your husband loses his job. So if you don't find a way of helping to pay the bills or replacing your husband's income or your old income or however it works for you, right? That financial necessity is going to result in either pushing you that much harder to make something happen, or you know that you're gonna have to make major changes and life is gonna get rough by the time your existing income runs out. The third thing missing is motivation. I've touched on this a little bit, but the reality is that you are not always going to feel like doing the thing you need to do to make progress towards your goal. So you need to know in advance, what motivates you? Are you naturally self-disciplined? And big side note, very, very, very few people are. A good 80+% of the general population is not the kind of person that can hold their own feet to the fire. So I will come back on accountability and talk more about this in a few minutes, but there are so many different ways of getting motivation. You can set up rewards for yourself as you are thinking about the milestones you need to reach to get to your goal. Think about what you're going to consider a way to celebrate that win, right? Set up some little carrot for yourself at the end of each step. Conversely, some people are especially motivated by fear of failure or fear of humiliation, fear of negative consequences. And so those proverbial sticks that they don't want to happen, the punishment that they don't want to occur, is something that motivates them to stay on track. Now, tracking your progress is another great way of staying motivated, because so often our minds play tricks on us and you may think that you are getting nowhere, right? You've been working so hard and you're just not seeing the results that you thought you would be seeing. I have definitely experienced this along the way of reaching many of my goals, not the least of which is my YouTube channel here, as I've talked about in the last couple of videos. The point is that tracking your progress and ideally checking in on a daily basis to, enter the metrics that are relevant to achieving your goal, whether that's the number of words you wrote or the number of pages you read or the number of videos you made or subscribers you have or money that came in, whatever is relevant for your goal, the number of miles you ran or the time that it took you to run a certain distance. Again, doesn't matter what your goal is, but find those measurable things that you can track day in, day out, because you will see when you do that you are probably making a lot more progress than your brain is giving you credit for. And if you have those objective data, you will be able to see that you are better off today than you were yesterday. And even if the numbers have not been going in your favor, you can then have an actual way of trying to evaluate your progress and make improvements. So again, so many ways to stay motivated, but you need to know before you ever even begin what motivates you, how you're going to stay motivated on this journey, and how you're going to deal with those setbacks that will inevitably occur. Number 4 is that SMART and SMARTER goals are completely neglecting the fact that you need dedicated time and energy to go after your goal. None of us lives in this perfect vacuum where we have endless time and perpetual energy. No, we have very finite amounts of time where we've got to carve out time to work on our goal around our existing obligations. And believe me, I know better than most how challenging that is as a full-time working mom of 3 young kids. And so it's really easy to use time as an excuse that keeps you from even starting after your goal, or as the reason that you assume you're not successful. But more than that, you also need energy. So even if you have time to work on your goal, you are not always going to be your best, most cognitively alert and able to focus self. I have spoken in depth about your body's 4 natural energy cycles in this video, so I'll link that for you in the description. Make sure you watch it or rewatch it because there is so much information in there about how you can track and harness those different energy cycles, which, as a side note, are completely unique to you, right? No 2 people have the exact same rhythms. So you need to know those things in order to A, make sure that you try and plan the time to work on your goal into those windows where you're naturally going to be your most able to be productive, what I call your peak performance windows, or B, you can at least recognize why it may feel like a struggle, right? Why in some moments it's harder to progress, it's harder to get things done, it's harder to go after your goal. You can give yourself grace because you will recognize that my body is just not where I need it to be right now, and that's okay. It'll change, it'll come back around. But time and energy are absolutely essential, and if you don't plan in from the beginning when you are going to work towards your goal, what time you are going to give it on a regular basis, and then try and align those time periods with when your body will work best, you're gonna be running into some trouble. All right, outside of knowing the why for reaching your goal, this 5th thing missing from S.M.A.R.T.E.R and S.M.A.R.T.E.R goals is definitely one of the most important. You have to build accountability in from the start. It is proven that almost no one will hold their own feet to the fire if left to their own devices, right? It's uncomfortable, it's hard, and we humans are lazy. We would much prefer to sit on the couch or stay where we're at and just be, in our existing situation because change is scary and change is hard and change takes work. So what you need to do is find some way that you are going to hold yourself accountable, or even better, make sure that you have an accountability system built in from the get-go. Now, this could be just verbalizing your goal to someone else because it is shown that that simple act increases your chances of success by 65%. And even more importantly, if you hire a coach or join a group program and schedule in regular accountability check-ins where someone wants to know how you're doing and someone is going to check in on your progress or offer suggestions to encourage you when you don't have that motivation yourself, that makes your chances of success skyrocket to 95% according to the American Society of Training and Development. So accountability is crucial. You cannot embark on a goal-slaying journey without it. And if you have in the past, that is probably one of the very real reasons why you might have failed. Now, the last thing I want to leave you with is just this reminder that failure is a perception, hence the air quotes, right? You are not a failure. You are never a failure, whether you reach your goal or not. But even if you feel like a failure because you haven't reached your goal or haven't gotten there by the deadline, please remember that if you want this badly enough, if you feel it is your purpose, if it's really something that adds value to your life, then just let the expectation of when it happens go. Have those deadlines. By all means, you need deadlines. But if things don't happen by the deadline, it's okay. Just trust that this will happen. It's only a matter of time. I know that's easier said than done. I have so much more advice and wisdom to share on this. I have compiled it all into my Goal Slayer Gal toolkit. You can find that linked in the description below. Jump straight into these other videos for so many more tips, and then make sure and subscribe if you haven't already. I'd be grateful if you gave this video a thumbs up, and I will see you back in my next video. Have a great day.